Geico presents Our Town, Season 4, a 30-minute podcast produced by Best Bark Communications, a small but fierce client-centered marketing company powered by decades of experience and well-established business networks. Geico, 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance. Now, here's your host, Andy Ockershausen.
This is Andy Ockershausen. This is Our Town. And I'm delighted. I say that all the time, Dana, but I really mean it in your case because you approached me and we were at a heroes meeting and you brought up WMAL and the fact that you grew up with it. And that impressed me more than your badge and more than your stars because you were part of Our Town. And I'm so delighted to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. What an honor and a privilege. My life is complete.
Because as a listener and a purveyor of the scene, you knew what WMAL was about. And I was impressed that you could remember those people and those names.
Yes, I grew up in Alexandria. I've been there my whole life. The house I live in now, I look out the back door and see the house that I grew up in. But every household... I'm 60, so you're going back to, the early 60s. Every household was on AM630, and that's how I just kind of thought that that's what everybody listened to. But I'd always wake up in the morning to Harden and Weaver, and so when you sort of first wake up, you're kind of in a daze, and I was like, "They're them guys again." I said, "My mom must have rented my room to somebody." I thought they lived in the house, actually. I just thought they were part of the family, and so I grew up on AM630, and and all the greats. The personality radio back in the day, the radio was based on personalities. And
did your family name you Dana? To me, when I grew up, Dana was a girl's name, but I love it. Dana Andrews was my first experience of an actor. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Great actor.
I can tell you two things about that real quick. Is I suspect that's where they got the name. I was born in 1957, and that was his heyday. I mean, he was big.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, big. So I'm a big Dana Andrews fan. So that's the story I like to tell, but... growing up, there were no male Danas. They were all girl Danas, and it was tough. It was tough. Let me tell you, and it's still tough at age 60.
I go tough in Alexandria too, Sheriff.
Look, they still think I'm a girl. I go to the doctor, and I'm the only one sitting in the waiting room. They walk out, and they go, "Dana Lawhorne." They like looking all around, and they go, they turn around, and they go to the back, and I'm like knocking on the door. "I'm Dana Lawhorne." They go like, "Oops." They do. I mean, they go, "Oops, sorry." I'm used to it. Don't worry about it.
I knew it. It had to be.
All the coupons they get from CVS, the rewards. Yeah, they're all for
Dana. You impressed me so much in our conversation. You really knew about Our Town, and you knew about growing up here, and you knew how important WMAL was to everybody, not just to Alexandria. And you were and then you grew up as a cop in Alexandria, so you had a dose of what we were and what we were doing. And you're such a great friend of WMAL. We appreciate you.
Well, somebody told me about your podcast show, and I longed for the days of true radio talk, if you ask me. And where the talk radio was based on personalities, and you were like just part of our home. You always made an effort to make it sound like we were all friends. We were all in this together. And at night, I loved. I was sort of way before my time, I guess. I had an old soul growing up, and I loved listening to talk radio when I was 12, 13 years old. I had one earpiece that went in my ear, and on AM radio, and loved listening to it. And listening to Larry Krebs, always kind of felt like I could sleep better at night knowing he was out there, because if something really big happened, he'd wake us all up.
He was there, baby.
He was there, yes. And Tom Gager, my oldest sister, and I were such big, huge fans of him that he always did an annual Christmas show from off-site, like Tyson's Corner or something, and we went out to Tyson's Corner. I have a bunch of Polaroids somewhere of the three of us and Tom Gager.
They were the good old days.
Yeah,
right.
I loved it. In the Redskins, listening to them and everything. It was
before you became a cop, and then eventually became the sheriff. You've been in law enforcement now for all these years. WMAL was known as a friend of the police all over the metropolitan area because of Bill Mayhew, who was all night long, because that was cops who were working could listen to what was going on. And then Larry Krebs was there with him. I understand Larry carried hot coffee in his car, so if it was a fire, he'd be the only one there with food for the firefighters. But those things don't exist anymore, Dana.
They don't, and I really I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. A lot of people have mentioned this to you, how much they miss it, and how much we really wish it came back. And so when I heard about your show a couple of years ago, I started listening, and I'm working my way up to the 160 interviews you've already done. But I tell everybody just what a hoot it is to listen to Sonny Jurgensen, and you were so I mean, blessed to have had Jim Vance. And before he passed,
were one of the few interviews he had before he announced that he was quitting.
Yeah.
But he told me, sitting right where you are, that he was not well. And we knew it was bad.
To listen to that interview, I mean, it's just...
And he was just world class.
And when I first met him, why your interview with him meant so much to me was I first met him when I was a junior at T.C. Williams High School.
Wow.
And our English teacher invited him to come and talk to our class. And he told the same stories he told you to us back then about starting in Philadelphia and how he got the job and all that.
He worked his way up. He started at the bottom.
Yep. Yeah.
But fine man, Jim Vance. One of the people we had is a voice going from the past called Mark Russell. He was so influential in our town at one time, politically.
Yes.
And to resurrect him has been a pleasure. But I'm going to resurrect you too, Dana, because I want to talk to you. I'm going to take a break now. Now I want to talk to you about your law enforcement work.
Sure.
This is Our Town with Andy O.
Technology Truth, brought to you by Geico.
Technology Truth.
Truth. You have 14 login passwords, and you can't remember any of them.
Doug 1. Doug 2. Doug is awesome. Doug is awesome 1, 2, 3.
Truth. It's so easy to switch and save on car insurance at geico.com.
Doug is super cool, ampersand underscore exclamation point 1985. Knew it.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
This is Attorney Mike Collins. Come to my seminar and I'll explain in plain English all you need to know about wills, trusts, taxes, probate, and how to keep your money in your family. I'll show you how to eliminate those dread death taxes and avoid the expense and delay of probate. See how our Reservoir Trust can protect your family's inheritance from lawsuits and the divorce court. Thousands of your neighbors have already attended. So watch the mail for your special invitation and register now at MikeCollins.com. That's MikeCollins.com.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen. Brought to you by Best Bark Communications.
This is Andy Ockershausen on Our Town with Dana Lawhorne, the present sheriff of Alexandria, Virginia, which is a huge title to me because I do not know the difference between the police chief and the sheriff. I didn't know that there was a difference, but obviously there's a huge difference. And Dana started as a cop and ends up as the sheriff. So Dana, how in the world did that happen? You're native, you're local. You wanted to be a policeman.
Well, I was 14 years old. I was sitting in Parker Gray Middle School with my head on the desk and totally disengaged. Really didn't, couldn't quite figure things out, I just grew up in a home that was very somewhat dysfunctional is all I'll say, and so school was tough, and I kind of was disengaged. My 8th grade teacher, Jack Esformas, said the police were coming to the classroom once a week and talking to us, and he said, they started a police ride-along program, citizen ride-along program. He says, you should do that. I said, no way, no how. Everybody think I'm a narc. And so he made me go because he showed me my grades, which were 0, 0, 0, 0. And he said, I'll give you a grade if you go. And I went. I wrote a paper about it, and he gave me a grade, and I got out of the 8th grade. That's how I got out of the 8th grade. But anyway, I went on a police ride-along when I was 14 years old, loved it, got the bug, thought that's my out. That's my goal in life. That's all I ever thought about. A lot of, quite a few Alexandria police officers had kind of took me under their wing and were role models for me. And that's all I ever thought about. So when I was 21 years old, I was fortunate enough to be hired by the Alexandria Police Department, was an officer for 27 years, 7 in uniform patrol, and 7 years and 20 years as a detective, and so
On the street as a detective.
yes,
Huh?
yes,
That must have been an interesting time. I grew up for a while in my other life in Alexandria, and I knew a lot of the officers, and I knew how busy that was. In a small area, they had a lot of cops. You needed them, and I just thought the Alexandria Police Department had great reputation.
it was a great career. In 2005, I ran for sheriff and won. I've
Is
been
that an
sheriff
elected job,
elected
correct?
every 4 years. Ran my first time. I had an opponent. Ran the last 3 times unopposed, which I'm proud of. So the reason why you have both is, the short answer is that the Virginia law says you must elect a sheriff. There's no choice. You have to elect a sheriff, and the sheriff will do X, Y, and Z. X being police the town or county, Y run the jail, city, Z is run the courthouse. So unless you as a town decide to elect your own town police force, then they will police the town, and you're left with Y and Z, jail and courthouse. So I have the jail and courthouse, and localities will do that because I'm elected and I work for the people,
The public.
The police chief works. He's an appointment. Works for
Yeah.
the city manager, who works for the city council. So they can have local control over their police chief.
Now your department's in charge of the jails, correct?
Yes, the Alexandria Detention Center, the Alexandria Courthouse.
And how about the federal? There's a big federal courthouse in Alexandria,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
But that's moved down Eisenhower Avenue.
Well,
or
that's
someplace?
close, right by us. So we're about 2 blocks apart. So we have a federal contract with the marshals that we do all their federal holds.
Oh, you do. So you get paid by Uncle Sam, huh?
Yes.
Department I remember in Alexandria was downtown. It was like off of Duke Street or off of King Street, but it was down in the city.
That's correct.
But now, because of progress, you had to move to the
Yeah, we
suburbs.
moved there in 1987.
Is that when it happened?
Yes,
When did you first become sheriff?
2006.
Well, it hasn't been that long. As you're running the jail for the feds, obviously you had some famous prisoners
Yes.
in the Federal Penitentiary.
Yeah, it's so we were probably most notable for, right after 9/11, the what they call the 20th hijacker, Zacharias Massawi. Had him 4.5 years. More notable today is Manafort.
He was in the jail for
Yeah.
4.5 years?
Yes.
Why was they
Well,
were
it
trying to avoid the trial?
Well, it took him that long to bring him to trial. Yes. And more recently, Manafort, Bettina, the Russian spy, and
Was he there? Why didn't they put him in the country club estate?
who?
Manafort.
Well, they actually
After he was convicted?
well, no, before, because they revoked his bail and put him in custody, and
Yeah.
so
he was a political prisoner, no doubt about that. So when did your responsibility end? When you transfer him then to a federal penitentiary?
Yes.
Or do they come and get him, or you
Yes.
deliver him?
So we're all pretrial. All pretrial. So it's once they're convicted and they're sentenced, then they go over to
Right.
Bureau of Prisons. So we average around 130, 140 on any
Federal?
given, yes.
Is
on
that
any,
right?
Yeah,
So
on
you
any given day.
Get a few dollars from that, huh?
About $7 million a year for the city.
Wow. But that doesn't go to the department; it goes right in the treasurer's office, right?
Exactly. But look, between the federal money, the state money, and some other funding sources, about half my budget is funded through other sources.
So you have 3 sources. You have federal, you have state, and you have state prisoners also.
Yes.
And then you have city.
Yes.
City prisoners.
Yes.
That's a pretty big responsibility, Chief.
Yeah, about 400 inmates per day, and that's probably about 70% of what we do. It absorbs about 70% of our resources. And
Are you getting ready for any new incoming prisoner?
no, not that I know of.
I heard him yelling, "Lock him up!" last night on one of those rallies or something. I don't know who they would lock her up. You've heard that.
Try not to get involved in all that.
But Dana, you're still involved in the city. We were talking about where you live, how close it was to that ball field, with that I know because I know who built it, and Shepardson and Gene Simpson and the builders, and they did all that. That it was one of the great ballparks, I think, in my growing up. And to have that shooting in Alexandria was very frightening.
Yes. So I live about 6 blocks from there. I grew up, played ball on that field like a lot of kids did on Simpson Field. And so, I was just getting ready for work. And I got there about 10 minutes after it, after the suspect was
Wild
neutralized. And, yeah, so I Yeah, so I stayed there all day with the police chief and fire chief, and
There was a case in Alexandria of a motorcycle policeman that got
Peter
killed.
Boy. Yes,
Is that guy still in the jail? Has he been convicted? I think he convicted him.
They did, but I believe that the disposition was, I'm like you, I'm drawing a blank. So,
Yeah. And then I'm reading again about law enforcement, about Paul Ebert, who I know out in the county. He didn't get a death sentence on something. And he said, the world has changed, but it has.
it has,
That's a fact.
it's a tough business today, and it's one of the things that I talk about often. People are asking me about the sort of the climate today of policing and what it's like, and it's getting difficult sometimes to recruit, but it's the profession that I came into that I still today have a passion for, and I guess today maybe the younger ones don't have that passion. I don't know, but it's a tough business, and coming under a lot of scrutiny and criticism. The public demands more. The expectations are higher, and
Social media has changed a lot of things.
But look, they can love us. I say it's the pendulum. It swings all the time. I remember I came on at 79. They didn't care for us. Then crack hit. Then they loved us. Couldn't do without us, But no matter which way it goes, they always need us. They always need us.
Sheriff. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. We'll continue now with our conversation with the Sheriff of Alexandria, Dana Lawhorne. And it's the male Dana.
Yeah,
this is Andy
thank you.
Ockertown, and this is our town.
Hi, Tony Sybil here to tell you about Tony and Joe's and Nick's Riverside Grill at Washington Harbor in Georgetown. Spectacular new restaurants. We've spent a lot of time rebuilding. You'll love it. It's really fantastic. For any information, you can go online to tonyandjoes.com. It'll be a wonderful experience for the whole family. Call 202-944-4545 to make reservations. Everything is fabulous. You've got to come down and have some wonderful food.
Hi, I'm Charles Mann. For athletes like me, playing every down in a pro game is like getting in a car accident. After years of playing football in Washington, my body is broken. I've had countless surgeries and joint replacements. I've been looking for a non-surgical treatment since I ended my career. I heard a radio ad for a seminar about alternative treatment. It's called regenerative medicine, which stimulates your own body to heal and repair itself. No surgery, no more pain. That got my attention. I went to a seminar to learn firsthand all about it. Now you too can benefit and receive this treatment. This is the same procedure that pro athletes use to quickly and effectively recover from injury. If you're looking to eliminate your pain and arthritis, or if you thought surgery was your only option, take the first step like I did. Call 410-787-7250. Register for the next seminar and learn more about this breakthrough procedure. Seating is limited. Register now by calling 410-787-7250 and start living life again.
You're listening to Our Town with Andy Ockershausen.
This is Andy Ockershausen, and I'm speaking with the Sheriff of Alexandria, a delightful local, our town native, a great WMAL fan, and a great guy, or he wouldn't be here. But Dana Lawhorne, I know your years on the force as a uniformed policeman was a different world than you now face. And some of your stories about our city and our town of Alexandria, I'd like to hear.
Well, I came on the police department in 1979. I was a uniformed patrol officer until 86. It was a great job. Of course, I was 21 years old at the time, but anyway, it was a great job. Back then, you relied on your radio, and you didn't have the computers that you have today. But it was just a great job, and I enjoyed it. I loved policing the community that I grew up in and being a part of that community.
Well, you had to know a lot of people because you're native.
Well, they did. A lot of people I went to high school with,
That's right.
they were like looking at me like they were shocked or something. I'm like, what? You're a police officer? Knocking on the door in the middle of the night, going like, hey, I know you from high school. But, it was a great job.
Here's your summons.
Yeah, and then I transferred as a detective in 86 and did investigated crimes committed against children. And
plainclothes detective.
Yes. And
Did you ever do any undercover work, old clothes?
I tried once, and didn't go so well. So anyway, wasn't very good at it. They looked at me and said, "You're a cop."
Got it written all over
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right. What gave you away? The handcuff key on your key ring. I'm like, darn, got me on that one.
Said that is. You see me in that uniform, and they immediately thought I was a policeman.
Yeah.
Great story.
Oh, you
Dana.
wanted me to wear blue jeans? Oh, I should have told me. Anyway, yeah. So, as a detective, that was one of the best jobs I ever had. I really enjoyed it, and a lot of challenges.
But you decided to go into politics because you were in a political position,
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
You got to run again, so you got to have a good performance, or they'll throw you out.
Yes.
And take the benefits with them. But Alexandria was known for many years as a small little southern town attached to Arlington and Washington. And all of a sudden, in my years with Frank Mann became mayor and things began to change for the city, long before you were on the force, we got to be the all-American city. For the first time, Alexandria was on the map all over the world.
Yeah.
A great old port city.
Yeah, and it's a great city. It's like every other city. In 1988 when crack cocaine hit, we were overwhelmed by it, just like everybody else. But the city did a really good job of trying to stay ahead of it, and eventually led to results. But it was during that time as a detective that we were probably challenged the most. But
timing is everything.
Timing's everything. And look, I've been with the city 40 years, and it's been great. I'm
wonderful.
Lucky.
Well, you've seen the changes. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
Dana. Now, Dana, tell me, you had a story about performing a wedding.
Well, as a sheriff, people think that I can perform weddings, and so I would say
the captain of the ship.
Right. One of the things that I've really enjoyed is marrying people, and so they think as a sheriff, they've been watching too much Andy Griffith. That I have this power to marry them. I've done 8 full weddings, bridesmaids, the whole 9 yards, and boy, are they in for a shock when they find out that it's totally not legal at all. You know what I mean?
Do you have to be in uniform when you do that?
No. But I'm just kidding about it.
But you have the authority.
Yes. So I was just kidding about not being legal. I usually tell them that at the end of the ceremony. I go, look, this is not legal at all. So anyway, good luck. But anyway, don't blame me. But but I get a circuit court order that gives me the authority to do it. So yes.
You have so many beautiful stories, and that's one of them. Also, because of what it did to our town, the Woodrow Wilson Bridge jumper was one of the major stories of the last 50 years, I think. I mean, I've never, ever seen a town collapse like that did.
Yeah,
like
so what happens, he goes out in the middle of the bridge. It's actually over D.C. water, so they took jurisdiction. But we got there first, so we start talking to him.
Were you a policeman then or
yeah,
sheriff?
I was a police officer then, but one of my ancillary duties was I was a team leader for our hostage negotiations team.
Right.
And so we were called. We went out there. So Derek Gaunt's talking to the guy. As a team leader, my responsibility is to watch him and sort of manage what's going on. So anyway, we've been out there about 6 hours. Sun went down. We were getting a little cold, but it was a threat that he'd had a gun. That's why we backed off. And so D.C. was managing it from the Maryland side, and we were talking to him from the Virginia side. It was anyway, make a long story short, about 6:30, I figured when my sister was calling me wanting to know if the bridge was back open, I go, okay, we've been out here a while. Anyway, I walk out there, and I said, if you fall in the water, he wanted to see his wife. And I said, your wife's in Virginia, in Alexandria. And I was looking at him, a point, and I'm going, she's that way. I said, if you fall in the water, you're in D.C., and you're going to go that way. And so he came off, and he started walking down the Jersey Wall, and he said, I'll get in your car. I went and got my car. I pulled up next to him. I turned the heat up really high. And I said, come on, man, it's warm in here. He said, will you buy me a prime rib dinner? And I said, yes. He said, will you buy me 2? I said, sure. He says, okay. And then, boom, they shot him with the beanbag. And the beanbag hit him on the ankle. He went, ouch. And then he just looked at me and, whoop, went over the Jersey Wall and splash. And so everybody said, well, then what did you do? I said, I looked over into Maryland, and I saw the Maryland State Police opening the Beltway and letting the people, like opening the traffic. And I yelled at them, get in the car, run! And we made a big U-turn and burned rubber, got out of there. But yeah, it was
incredible show, huh?
Quite a night. So one of my other stories about being on a hostage negotiations team was the night that 2 guys go in to rob the pawn shop. And so somebody sees them, and they call the police. They get trapped inside. So I was on duty that night. They called me, so I go down there. So I'm the negotiator. I have to call the pawn shop and start talking to the guy about
on the telephone.
On the telephone, right? So we actually had a cell phone back then. So headquarters gave me the telephone number, and I called, and I started talking to this person. And I'm going, what's going on? He said, well, there's a hostage situation, And I was like, yeah. And I go, well, how are you doing? I said, well, I'm fine. He said, I got a police officer in here. And I go, you do? And I go, yeah. He says, I said, oh, good God. I tell the watch command, the on-scene commander, I go, there's a police officer inside. This could be good. It could be bad. And I said, well, can I talk to him? He said, sure. So the officer got on the phone. I said, hey, man, how's everything going? He said, fine. He said, but next door at the pawn shop, they got hostages. They gave me the wrong number. I called the five guys. Anyway.
It sounds like the Keystone Cops.
It's a true story. But it turned out that I wound up talking to this guy for about 3 hours, and there were 8 hostages, and got them all out. But he decided to take his life, and
you couldn't stop that.
No, I couldn't stop. It was hard trying.
Sounds like Car 54. Where are you?
Yeah, sometimes. But as a police officer, great job. I've been so blessed to have had such a great career, and so
let me tell you, the city of Alexandria is blessed to have officers like you and sheriffs like you, and we're very proud of you, and particularly since you're a WMAL guy, because we got to love you, Dana.
It's I've just been lucky. I met a girl when I was 19 years old, and she agreed to a second date. And so now here we are. We've been married since 1986. So I'm not doing the math, because if I get it wrong,
TC.
Yeah, exactly. We met later, but we have 3 daughters, grown daughters. 2 oldest who are married. We have a grandson.
You still live in the city.
Still live in the city.
Don't move.
And the girls are still here, all within 5 or 10 minutes. They're home now more than they were when they were in high school. But great kids, great family. I've been so blessed, and I'm lucky.
Well,
I'm so
we're
lucky.
blessed to have you in our town.
To be here today, Andy, I got to tell you, man, come on. It doesn't get any better than this. There's
nothing better, and you're right. And you can thank, and I know you will, thank my wife, who's my producer. Janice was the original Janice Iacona. She produced the Harden and Weaver show for 10 golden years, and things will never be like that again.
Well, and everything you talk about, I always relate to. But you were talking. I was listening to your Trumbull and Core's producer. He was talking about the Air Florida crash.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was there.
You were there.
Oh yeah, I was there because. Real quick, back then the only way for all the public safety to communicate was through a civil defense phone.
Yeah.
So you picked the phone up and you went, help! And everybody picked it up at the same time. It rang. Once you picked it up, it rang everywhere. And so when the plane went down, they picked it up, said, plane crash, 14th Street Bridge, need boats. So I'm in roll call at 4 o'clock. They call down to the roll call room, and they say, Chief wants to see you in the lobby. I go upstairs. Airplane crash, 14th Street Bridge. You got to go. You got to take our boat. I'm going, I can't swim. And we don't care. We had you down as a certified boat operator. I said, because I put me in that boat and we drifted out to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge one day. We had to row back. They said, yeah, we put you down. So vicarious liability was really big back then. I said, no, you got to go. So they dust off get all the snow off this boat that we had in the back on a trailer. Gary Ground, Gary was there, and we had nothing to hook it up to. So the guy at the fire shop next door had an open cab fire truck. He said, I got a hitch on that. And so we hooked it up to that, and I jumped into the cab of this fire truck, and here I go. And I couldn't believe it. And all I could think about was I was going to drown. But you went.
It was cold, too.
Well, it was cold, but you went. You know what I mean? And
when the order comes, you got to go.
That's right. You go. And I said, we were going by the giant food store on First Street where my brother was a manager. And I said, I hope he's working, because if he's in that manager's thing, which is elevated, and he hears me coming by in a fire truck, I stood up. It was open cab. I stood up, and I'm waiting. Sure enough, he was working. And he looks at me, and I look at him. I go, Bill, it's me. You can have my Pontiac. Anyway. But by the time we got up there, it was all over.
Because you're a hero.
Yeah, I know. It was nothing to do.
We lived through the whole thing. I know what happened and all about it. But, Dana, it's been such a pleasure, because you're such a big, big part of our town. And we'll hope you will continue to be. Hope you
absolutely.
Keep winning elections.
Well, thank you. So just the last thing I want to say is thank you. The city, the people of Alexandria have been so good to me. Just been so lucky.
Well, you've been good to them, too.
I've tried.
Two-way street.
I've tried really hard. I've always tried to do the right thing.
Dana, thank you so much. Yeah. Dana Lawhorne, the sheriff of Alexandria, Virginia, an all-American city, I may add.
Thank you.
This is Andy Ockershausen reminding everybody you're all part of our town.
You've been listening to Our Town Season 4, presented by Geico, our hometown favorite, with your host, Andy Ockershausen. New Our Town episodes are released each Tuesday and Thursday. Drop us a line with your comments or suggestions. See us on Facebook or visit our website at OurTownDC.com. Our special thanks to Ken Hunter, our technical director, and WMAL Radio in Washington, D.C. And thanks to Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on car insurance.